So the first thing you need to avoid is to avoid using overstayed feedstuffs or decaying feedstuffs. Now, sometimes we want to cut down costs and then we get feed materials that are not in their best shape, right? Because it's definitely will be cheaper. Please avoid using those kind of feedstuffs. When we're talking about nutrition, I told you that whatever you feed your birds is what they tend to reproduce, right? So if you don't feed them with good stuffs, it reflects in their growth. It reflects in their egg production, right? So when you are choosing feedstuffs, when you are measuring them, when you are buying them, don't use what is not in its best form. Secondly, do not leave your feed meal. If you're using a feed meal, do not leave the feed meal until you are done with the whole process. Now, this is because some of these feed mill attendants are not very honest. So when you leave, they might tamper with your measurements, maybe trying to secure some part of your fish so that they can resell to somebody else. Once this happens, in fact, I've heard of scenarios where they used chaff to refill it so that it still measures in the same kg. Now, when things like that happen, it compromises the integrity of your feed, it compromises the quality of your feed. So you might be feeding your birds and then you have issues and you wouldn't know where it's coming from because your ration is correct, right? And the feedstuffs are good. But then the problem will be that the ration has been altered the moment they recalculated that, the moment they measured out some portion of that very feed. So this is why you have to be there when they are grinding and when they are mixing. And in fact, if you not be there, you make sure you come with somebody that can stay on your behalf while you go and run the activities. The third thing that you need to avoid is to assume calculations. When we're talking about ration, I told you ration is so important, right? So you cannot assume your ration. You cannot assume that, okay, the crude protein of maize is 7 or is 10. You cannot do that. Your calculation has to be accurate. So whatever you are doing during your ration calculation, it should be certain, right? It should be certain so that you don't run into problems. The fourth thing that you need to avoid is do not use one source of carbohydrate or one source of protein. Now you see some persons make this mistake. You just put one carbohydrate source and one protein source and that's it. Your feed will not be good. You have to include more than one, at least 2 to 3 carbohydrate or protein so that you have good balances. And the fifth thing that you need to avoid is this has to do with storage. When you store your feed, do not put them in wet places because once they begin to get contact with water, they cake and begin to grow fungals and the feed will lose its quality. So when you are storing your feed, you have to store them in a cool and dry place. I remember I told you that whatever feed you are producing should not exceed 3 months. So these are the few things that you should avoid when producing the feed.